This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner, who is winding up a road trip with his son. Our number is 617-266-6868 to get on board. And my question for you is, are you tired of winning it? President Trump promised us back in 2016, first time around, that if we elected him, we would get tired of winning. Do you remember? I have it for you, just in case you don't. Mike, could you play Cut 100?
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
Are we there yet? Has President Trump's promised winning streak come to fruition? And if so, does that spell the end of the Democratic Party? Can they survive all the winning after all their gloom and doom prognostications? I guess when you think about whether it is a horrible end, it looks like, for the Democratic Party, you first have to decide, is the Trump administration on a winning streak? So let's look at it. Let's look at a few different things. For instance, in regard to the economy, the latest economic report blew the doors off all expectations. The second quarter GDP rocketed up by 3%, which is higher than any of the legacy media experts ever predicted. Consumer confidence just posted another gain, and the stock market is setting new highs. Americans are working, they're investing, and they're keeping faith with President Trump, who promised we would be winning. Today, GDP, this past week, GDP growth came in above market expectations. And last week, consumer confidence went up as well. Americans appear to be trusting in President Trump's America First economic agenda. And the experts keep being proven wrong, basically. And I think that's what Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, actually said from the podium last week. She said that President Trump has reduced America's reliance on foreign products, boosted investment in the U.S., created thousands of jobs. He's delivering on his promise to make America wealthy again. The data is clear. There are no more excuses. Isn't this what we were waiting for? Is that, a politicization of what's going on, or is it accurate? Is it hyperbole, or is it basically the truth? I guess that's the question that we have to look at. One of the indicia, one of the things that shows me that it's accurate and not just political hype from the White House are the reactions of people like Jim Cramer on CNBC. I don't know if you ever watch CNBC. I generally don't. I check in on it once in a while, and they're not exactly pro-Trump, to be honest with you. But Jim Cramer got so excited last week on how well the economy was doing after the announcement of President Trump's European Union trade deal that he basically let the F-bomb fly live on the air. That's cut number 15A, Mike.
Our biggest problem is we have so much growth that the Fed won't cut.
What the Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I take it right back.
Everybody,
I take it right back.
That was big. It's okay. We're in the moment.
I take it right back.
It's just the way
I take it right back. That was big.
It's cable with a ticker, as Kuhner would say.
I take that back.
Now, he later posted an apology to all the viewers. He said, I apologize to all viewers. I was too effusive in making my point about the great economy we have. But wow. I mean, Jim Cramer is excited about the economy, what's going on. And that EU deal was a massive triumph. Under the terms of that deal, the EU has agreed to buy $750 billion worth of energy from the U.S. And they're going to make $600 billion in investments in the U.S., and they're going to purchase hundreds of billions of dollars worth of military equipment. And European goods will be coming into the U.S. with a 15% tariff, and the EU is going to put 0% on U.S. tariffs. 0%. Does this feel like winning to you? And that was not the only trade deal that's been happening lately. I mean, have you seen the list? I mean, what was this? This was announced April 2nd, I believe it was. And the president was using trade deficits to help calculate the tariff rate. And then he lowered that a little bit, and he allowed countries time to negotiate. And negotiate they did, besides the European Union trade deal, which, as I said, is probably the biggest trade deal, according to the commissioner of the EU, the biggest trade deal ever to announce. We also reached a deal with Japan, settling a 15% tariff on Japanese goods, lower than the 25% tariff that Trump had threatened to impose. Japan is also going to invest $550 billion in projects in the U.S., and it's going to open its markets to U.S. automobiles, and I think rice and some other agricultural products as well. The Philippines have agreed to a trade deal with the U.S. that lowers U.S. tariffs on its exports from 20% to 19%. There's an agreement with Indonesia that is setting a tariff rate of 19%. And don't forget, I think the first trade deal that was announced was the United Kingdom, and that was back in May. That agreement set the tariff rate at 10%, down from 25%. And then the U.S. and China are also working on a deal to stave off a trade war between the two countries. And the U.S. reduced its tariff rate from 145% to 30%, and China reduced its rate from 125% to 10%. There are all sorts of deals that are still in negotiations, like Canada, Mexico, the Koreas, Tunisia, Cambodia, all these other places that they are currently working on. So this all sounds like winning to me. Does it sound like, winning to you? I'm just kind of wondering, because, what the impact of these tariffs, this tariff policy is, essentially is to cut down our debt, completely cut down our debt. And it now appears that the effective tariff rate, or the net impact, is about 15 to 20% range. Now, liberal economists had promised that the aggressive tariffs that President Trump was proposing on his Liberation Day were going to spike inflation and lead to a pronounced slowdown or recession. But these doomsday pronouncements have not come to pass. Instead, you have a stabilization of the economy, a lowering of the inflation rate, a growth in the GDP. And economists are now saying that, the strong global backdrop and less than expected long-term inflationary impact of the tariffs and a general easing in financial conditions are all making the economy look very good. JP Morgan Chase lowered its recession risk from Liberation Day level of 60% down to 40% now. Why? Because it is working. The tariffs are working. That's what is happening. And on top of this, President Trump has said that he has an idea. He's floating a tariff revenue funded rebate for middle and low income earners, which I think is a great idea. He's emphasizing that the whole purpose of the tariffs is to pay down the national debt, and that's the top priority. But he's open to tariff-funded dividends for the American people, specifically middle income and lower income. But first things first, let's get the debt down and then see what we can do. So these are the policies that President Trump is putting out there, and I support what he's doing because it sounds, and my own pocketbook tells me that it's working. But these tariffs have defied the naysayers. But even with these clear-cut signs that President Trump, at least in regard to the economy, knows what he's doing, it still doesn't deter the Trump dysphoric people from trying to fearmonger and continue to try to scare those who may not be economically savvy, or those who don't want to believe that Trump can do something good, that will always believe the worst of him. And for example, all this economic good news, What does one of the leading Democrats in the country do? Does he say, hey, let's let bygones be bygones, at least in regard to the economy? And I'll tell you that, okay, when it comes to the economy, the Trump administration is bringing relief to the American people. That's what we all want. No, he doesn't say that. The minority leader of the U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, does not say that. He got out on the Senate floor this past week, and he made an astonishing statement in regard to the GDP. And in case somebody doesn't know what the GDP is, it's the GDP equals the total monetary value of all finished goods and services within the U.S. That were produced in the past year. It's a key measure of the nation's economic health. And as of last week, the GDP of the U.S. had surged in the second quarter and had grown 3%. And, and by the way, so did consumer confidence go up. Positive sentiment is climbing. Good news is that, that this is like the consumer sentiment is the largest part of the economy. So what was Chuck Schumer's response to that? The text number is 70470. President Trump said if we elected him, we would get tired of winning. Are we winning? And does this spell the end of the Democratic Party? The economy is booming. The GDP went up 3% in the second quarter. This is important because it is one of the most basic and accurate ways we have of measuring the growth or reduction in the economy. A 3% surge is good news. And one would think that you would be dancing in the streets saying, this is wonderful. And I think most people are, unless, of course, you're a Democrat or your name is Chuck Schumer. What Chuck Schumer did on the Senate floor this week, or this past week, did he say this is a good start? Well done? No. Here is Senator Chuck Schumer of New York on the floor of the Senate. Cut 22.
While the Trump administration will try to wave rosy headlines about the Q2 number, today's GDP number is in fact a mirage because some ominous numbers lurk under the hood. Business investment plunged in the second quarter by 3.1%. The fact that business investment plunged so starkly is very troubling. It shows that already businesses are worried about growing their operations, worried about hiring more workers, worried about trading with their international partners, and worried in general about the future. And this number is another data point in a larger pattern. Donald Trump's tariffs are weighing down the U.S. economy, spiking costs for small businesses and families alike. And if Donald Trump keeps up the chaos, the dangers for the economy will continue to get worse.
So Chuck Schumer turned a 3% surge in the GDP into something threatening. What the bleep? He is standing there telling you that the sky is green and not to believe your lying eyes, which tells you that it's blue. I was completely floored by that. And by the way, can we talk about hypocrisy maybe? He wants to talk about prices when inflation surged under President Biden, his party's leader, current leader still, former President Joe Biden, made life in America a whole lot more expensive for everybody. Inflation has actually cooled under President Trump. But Chuck completely decided to ignore that. And not only that, what he's decided to ignore is that people can feel how much better the economy is. That to me is despicable. It's fear-mongering on people who already have a lot to deal with and trying to hide good news. And he's not the only Democratic mouthpiece trying to convince everybody that the sun is not shining when they, can see the rays for themselves. You have, for instance, the New York Times, which is, again, doing the same thing, trying to say that the sky is green. They are basically spitting mad about the GDP surge. According to them, according to the Times, even though the economy grew at a solid 3% in the second quarter, which beat everybody's expectations, you should believe that that doesn't really count. Why? Because they say Trump's tariff policies are skewing the numbers. And the Times dismisses the growth as a statistical fluke and says that the real story is slow growth, with more doom coming soon, thanks to these tariffs, government spending cuts, and tighter immigration enforcement. This all bodes badly for us, they say. In other words, no matter how good the numbers look, it's still somehow bad because President Trump is a bad man. And let's not forget that Democrats in the New York Times predicted that Trump's tariffs would wreck the economy. But now that growth is exceeding expectations, they're scrambling. They're desperate to explain it away. And so what they're trying to do is blame those very same tariffs for artificially inflating the numbers. So when the economy struggles, it's Trump's fault. And when it's booming, it's actually not, and it's still Trump's fault. That is the load of hornswoggle that they're trying to sell you. And it's rich coming from people who had us in an economic, morass, a doldrum before the 2024 election. Life was horrible on an economic level. Their policies were dreadful. And you can still see the effect of liberal and progressive economic policies in some states. For instance, I want to show you, even though most of the country is doing better, you can't lead a horse to water and make it drink. I mean, California has really slit its own economic throats to the point where people are fleeing that state. I want to give you an example of what they've done. They have a $20 fast food minimum wage law that has reportedly cost nearly 18,000 jobs, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research. They put out a study earlier this month. So they found that fast food jobs in California dropped 3.2% after this $20 fast food minimum wage law went into effect. It was a loss of 18,000 jobs in that sector. So this bill was supposed to help low-income workers, and instead it lost them their jobs. It was passed, I think, September 2023, and Gavin Newsom signed it into being. It was called the Fast Food Council. And their job was to set minimum wages and workplace standards for the fast food sector. That's what their job was to do in order to better the lives of people who work in that industry. But what they did is they raised the rate to $20 per hour. And what happened? And that basically destroyed the ability of those restaurants to hire people, or to hire as many people as they were before. So, and by the way, fast food employment grew across the rest of the country, but not in California. In California, it dropped. So I want you to think about California. You got the train to nowhere there. You got fire hydrants with no water in the middle of wildfire season. You got endless handouts for illegal immigrants. And then you have raising the minimum wage rate so that restaurants can't afford to pay it anymore. That's what liberal economic policies brought you. So they have the nerve to say a 3% growth in GDP is a bad thing. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. This is the Kuhner Report. Our text number is 70470. On the text line, 508 says, Sandy, President Trump surprised the nation with a bold statement suggesting that tariffs could potentially eliminate all income taxes. Trump aims to eliminate income taxes for those earning under $200,000 annually using tariff revenues. He said when he floated his tariff proposition that would be his ultimate goal to get there, that he wants to get us away from an income tax-driven society back to a tariff-driven government-funded government, which is what we used to be before the Civil War. So that is that's what he said, and so that is what he's working toward. But first and foremost, he has said over and over again, it's about paying the debt down first. We need to pay the debt down before we can do any of the other things like give people a rebate if they're middle or lower income, or eliminate the income tax if you make less than 200. Obviously, I don't know anybody who wouldn't like that unless your name is maybe, Mamdani in New York and you're a communist and you want free grocery stores and housing for everybody and you can't figure out how to pay for that. It's kind of like the Star Trek vision of the future, but you need a tax base in order to do that. And that's something that people like him always seem to forget. But I digress. President Trump is at the helm of what appears to be a surging economy. And with the economy bustling along like it is, the Democrats want you to believe that Trump is an economic dunce. So they are trying to ignore the GDP or make you believe it doesn't represent what it does. And instead, they're focusing on something like the jobs report. There's a slump in the jobs market that came out last week. It basically shows that the U.S. has had the weakest job growth in a long time, in a few years. And this came on the heels of a substantial downward revision in the number of jobs that were added in May and June. And President Trump, actually, response was to fire the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Dr. Erica McIntyre, because he said she faked the job numbers. Now, I don't know whether she faked the job numbers or not, to be honest with you. But he was asked about this on Friday. Cut 103, please, Mike.
Your supporters have had issues with these numbers.
I've had issues with the numbers for a long time. But today, we're doing so well. I believe the numbers were phony, just like they were before the election. And there were other times. So you know what I did? I fired her. Right. And you know what? I did the right thing.
Now, again, I don't know if she faked the numbers or not, but he's right. The economy was doing really well, and there have been some suspicious reports that have been put out. But this is what I do know. There's a contrast between the Trump economy and former President Joe Biden's economy, and it's a stark contrast. Under Biden, after the economy matched its pre-COVID employment levels, that was July of 2022, the economy added 3.3 million jobs over the next 2.5 years. But here's the thing. Here's the dirty little secret with that number. 3.1 million of those jobs went to foreign-born workers. Native-born workers, i.e. Americans, gained just 189,000 jobs over that same time period. Now, compare that to the Trump economy. In just 7 months of the Trump economy, U.S. workers have gained over 2 million jobs. That's many, 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 many times more than U.S. workers, jobs gained than U.S. workers did under the Biden administration. The Biden economy was great if you were a foreigner, if you were outside the U.S. The Trump economy, on the other hand, has its focus on the American worker. So when you look and you see 73,000 jobs gained in July and the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.2%, that doesn't sound like a booming economy, but those numbers don't capture the underlying churn that's taking place, because instead of an economy dependent on a mass influx of illegal immigrant labor and foreign workers, Trump is building an economy where native-born workers get the jobs they deserve at wages where they can support a family. President Biden allowed about 5.6 million illegal immigrants to enter the country during his administration. Removing them was always going to have an economic impact. Overall, that has meant slower job growth as illegal immigrants leave the workforce, but it has also meant booming job growth and higher wages for American workers. And that is what people voted for last year. But that is not what most of the progressive Democrats and their acolytes will tell you. That's part of the dirty secret there. What they want you to believe is, in fact, that all is lost. The tariffs are going to destroy the country. The GDP means nothing. and the job surge or the lack of a job surge is an indicia of a dying economy. That doom and gloom, when they put it out there, that fear mongering, does that make you trust the Democrats more? Or does that make you say, what the hell is wrong with these people? And why have I ever listened to them if I ever did? Is there pushback against President Trump's winning on an economic level causing the Democrats more hurt than, say, congratulating him, saying, job well done, let's work together? Because to me, that is the way forward for the Democratic Party. But I don't see anybody doing that. Do you? What do you think? Is President Trump winning? And is his winning having a reverse effect on the Democratic Party to the point where they are shooting themselves in the foot and destroying themselves right before our very eyes? Dave in Pennsylvania, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Dave?
Good morning, Sandy. How you doing? You and Mike are doing a fantastic job. But obviously, Mike said he was from Kentucky, so God bless him coming home. But God bless you and Mike. You guys are doing a wicked good job.
Thank you, Dave. That's really kind. So tell me something. Are you tired of winning yet?
Sandy, I'm loving the winning. And if I could steal a little bit of your thunder, I'll tell you what, the Democrats are suffering from a GSW. Like I told Mike, a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yeah.
And they're blaming everybody else, Sandy. You know, it's the blame game, the fear-mongering. It's everybody's fault but our own. All Trump people are racists. You know, it's like my sister-in-law. No matter what you tell her, if you support Trump, Sandy, same which me and you do, we're the bad guys and we're the racists and we lack tolerance and diversity. But you know what, Sandy? Like I've said to Jeff and you before, the Democrats preach a good game, but they don't practice it. You know what I mean?
I do.
Tolerance and diversity. They're the last ones to practice it, Sandy.
Well, do you think that they've gone too far? I mean, when I go to the grocery store now, I mean, I do the grocery shopping in my household. I know what eggs used to cost. I know what they cost me now. I know what a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are still high. Not everything's come down, but a lot of things have. And I can buy more groceries now than I could a year ago. Let me just put it that way. We still have a lot of improvement to make, but I think we're on the right path. But then I have people turning around and telling me on CNN or MSNBC or wherever they are saying, oh no, eggs haven't gone down. I'm like, do you grocery shop? I mean, I've seen them go down. Is this in your face misrepresentation of the economy in their fear of Donald Trump succeeding? Is this doing nothing? Is this destroying them as opposed to destroying Trump? What do you think, Dave?
Yes, Sandy. And if I can real quick, you're 1,000% correct to quote Jeff. I want to give Jeff some kudos over the weekend. He sat down with my beautiful Pittsburgh lady, Wendy Bell, on Common Sense or Newsmatch, and Jeff hit it out of the park. And, you know, you guys are the results of Jeff, Sandy. You do a great job. Mike does a great job.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
Has Trump fulfilled his promise to make us sick of winning? 617-266-6868 is the number here. 70470 is the text number. And has all of President Trump's success driven the Dems to self-destructive behavior? It's amazing to me whenever a good report comes out what their response has been. And there was a really funny example of this last week. The Democratic National Committee jumped into this issue last week on the economy, and they posted a now deleted graph. It was a social media post that showed how the cost of groceries skyrocketed under former President Joe Biden. That's not what they intended to post, by the way. The post, it was on X. It included a graph of soaring cheese, alcohol, dairy, grocery, produce, and meat prices dating back to October 2019, with the major inflection point being near the start of the Biden administration in 2021. And the caption underneath it was Trump's America. Prices are higher today than they were on July 2024, all in major categories listed below. That's what the caption on the graphic read. By the way, they didn't show what the source of their data was. They just had this graph up. But the White House was quick to respond, as were a lot of other people on social media. So what they did is they added a Biden label with two arrows pointing to the price jumps under the previous administration. And the interesting thing is that the Biden era surges, highlighted in red by the White House, took up the majority of the graph, whereas the more stable costs of good under Trump were just a little tiny part of the chart. And so a lot of people on social media were pointing out this self-owned by the Democratic Party, going, I don't know, kind of looks like Biden's America. That was one ex-user put up there. And then another podcaster wrote on sent out an X post as one of the dumbest posts in X history, and noted that the DNC deleted it after getting basically ragged into oblivion for it. And people are saying it was the biggest self-own they'd ever seen. So in other words, they pointed a graph up trying to make fun of President Trump, but what they showed was that the huge inflation increases had happened under Biden. Bizarre behavior. That's a destructive, bizarre behavior to do. I mean, what the hell? Why? What's wrong with you? And here's the thing. Every time they post something trying to denigrate the economy, President Trump's handling of the economy, what they forget about is that Americans can see for themselves what is happening outside their little echo chamber they have going on. We don't live in a fantasy recession, which is what the mainstream media and the Democratic Party wanted you to believe would happen. We now seeing paychecks that stretch further. We see companies creating jobs here at home. And we see an economic dynamism that the leftist policies never delivered. President Trump promised to make America wealthy again, and he is doing it. It may not happen as fast as a lot of people want it to, but it is happening. And the progressive left can't spin that. The numbers speak for themselves, and the media meltdown over those numbers kind of proves the point, I think, don't you? So basically, are you tired of winning yet? And has all this winning driven the Democrats crazy? And they just now are hurting themselves with their negative responses to all that winning. Eddie in Charlestown, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Eddie?
Good, Sandy. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I think the president and his administration's doing an awesome job. They stopped the Biden bleeding. And, however, the only thing I'm disappointed in is the prices at the gas pumps still hover around $3 a gallon. I know it's coming down, but
and that's a lot better than during the Biden administration when it was $5 a gallon, don't you think?
Well, not in Massachusetts. It never really hit $5 a gallon.
It did where I live, my friend. So in Massachusetts, so it may not have at the station where you go to, but it did here. It did in other places in Massachusetts. Absolutely, it did.
But I drove by a gas station in Wilmington 2 days ago, and the price was $2.63, and that's the lowest since President Trump's first administration, which was great. However, 2 days after I drove by, it went up 14 cents to $2.77. So that still amazes me. There's some price gouging going on. So the president has to address that. And I don't hear any more drill, baby, drill. What happened to drill, baby, drill?
Well,
bring the prices down.
Well, that's because they are drilling, Eddie. He doesn't have. He's not. He may not be saying drill, baby, drill, but they're actually following through on the oil leases. So they are drilling, which is why the prices are coming down, because we're becoming more and more dependent on our own gas than we are on. All of this takes time. Don't forget. So we have to wean ourselves off of OPEC, which is where President Biden sent us. And he also basically drained our strategic reserves. President Biden did. So we have to build those back up again, and we have to go back to drilling, which we are doing. But drilling doesn't mean you stick a drill in the ground and you have gas at the pump the next day. There's a process, and it takes a while, and that's why the prices are coming down. And I'm sure they will come down more. But it's a process, and it takes a little bit of time. That's all.
Realize that, and I know it's only been 7 months, and he's done a great job cleaning up the big mess that he was left.
Do you think, Eddie, though, you're not tired of winning? I was going to say, do you think, Eddie, that with the pushback that the Democratic Party is making and their friends in the mainstream media are making, are they just hurting themselves at this point? Because you just told me you saw prices coming down. They're not as low as you want them, and you want them to keep going down. But they're telling you that prices haven't gone down at all. And what does that make you think of them?
The public. And it just amazes me that the people that vote these people in, how do they believe their lies?
I don't know. I don't know how I think a lot of cases you have people have, they go into denial. They don't want to believe that they could be wrong about something, that they could be wrong about President Trump's handling of the economy. You do have people who are smart enough to know when they should say they're wrong, and we've had a few of those, but they're the exception, not the rule. And some people just have a really hard time saying that they were wrong about something, and that's why they're happy to believe a fable that's spun out to them by somebody like Chuck Schumer, who says, "Oh, GDP surge of 3%, that's bad. It's there's something worse coming behind it. Like there's a tsunami of something bad coming behind a GDP surge growth." This is the same guy who was happily, whistling through the graveyard as our economy was falling apart under President Biden. So I think that what's happening is they are destroying their own credibility every time they lie to you, Eddie. And every time they lie, they peel off more Democrats that say, "I can't do this anymore, and I'm not gonna be complicit with this," and they wander off, and they maybe don't come over to Trump, but they don't stay on the left side anymore. They go to the middle and they sit there and they try to decide which way to go. What am I going to do? Do I stay here? Do I stay the Democratic Party? I think a lot of people have found the Democratic Party have left them, and and that is sad for me, to be honest with you. I know people go, "Oh, how can you say that?" I think our country works best with a two-party system, and to do that, you need two healthy parties, and that's how you compromise and you work and so forth. We have not had that in a while. We have not had two healthy parties in a while. So I think that the Democratic Party as it exists now is eating itself through the lies it tells, through the misrepresentations it tells, and I think it's destroying itself. And hopefully that will make way for something better to take its place. Maybe not. I don't know, Eddie, but we'll see, won't we? So meanwhile, keep your eyes peeled on the gas pump. I'm sure it's going to go down. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it very much. Russ in Boston. Russ, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Russ?
Sandy, I'm happy. Winning. My political savia has re-risen. And we're back on the right road again. Thank God. Okay. Now, here in Massachusetts, most of those who vote for the Democratic Communist Party suck up propaganda like a sponge. They refuse to open their minds to conservative thinking. And what they fail to understand, we are in a serious point of moral hazard. Without President Trump changing direction, we are on the road to bankruptcy and communist China domination. There's no question about that. Now let's get into tariffs, okay? Well, some of these people understand. Listen to the ignorant talking heads, the misleading SOBs that they are, okay? We are the world's largest consumer of goods and services. The world cannot survive without us buying their goods and services. We have the upper hand. they cannot win a trade war against the United States of America, okay? And especially those SOBs in communist China, which we've given them all the ammunition, everything to kill us. Their objective is world domination. And people stick their head in the sand, don't understand that. And it was Donald Trump and oh God, I can't think of his name at the moment. He ran against George Bush. He got 20% of the vote. You know who I mean. Anyways, they're the only two bringing up about communist China and the unbalance of trade and everything else. Now, the last comment I'm going to make is about that scumbag Chuck Schumer, okay? He is the snake of snakes, and he is nothing but a rotten backstabber, okay? Now, when Osama Obama, and I like calling him that, remember, I got that from Ted Kennedy.
Okay.
When Osama Obama peddled the Iran deal, okay, he knew that ultimately it could eliminate the state of Israel, because if they had an atomic bomb, they would use it against the state of Israel without question, okay? Now, what that scumbag did, if he was out against that from the beginning, that would have got squashed. But he kept his mouth shut. But then the weasel that he is, he waited until it came up for a vote, and it was too far down the road to bury it. He turned around and he voted against it. So if you look on paper, it looked like he was against it. But he could have killed that in the beginning. And I'm going to say this. I know a lot of people like what I'm about to say, okay? But as far as I'm concerned, he's no better than George Soros. And if he was around during World War II, just like George Soros, he would be a Nazi collaborator to save his own rear end. So he is no good, and that's all there is to it.
Okay. I like a man who stands by his opinions, Russ. I have to say, I don't disagree with you. I think that the interesting thing to me about what's happening in the economy is that it's the action and the reaction that you see. They're almost like complete polar opposites, like magnetic pole opposites. So the better that President Trump does, the worse the Democratic Party does. Because for the simple reason that they won't get on board and say, okay, let's support what's going on. We'll bide our time and we'll run somebody that we think can bring in some, different policies and do more of what we want to do in 2028. Instead, they, in their panic, they're kind of like those, what are they, lemmings? They just, they kind of like jumping off a cliff. One goes and the rest just follow. And President Trump, Russ, has a name for these people, and it cracks me up. Have you heard it? Panicans. Have you heard the name Panican?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this is him explaining a panican. I love this, Russ. Hold on. Cut number 1, please, Mike.
I call them panicans because maybe they're not smart, because they're playing right into the enemy's camp. And in other cases, they really are people that panic. They can't handle pressure. And, both are sort of dangerous.
Yeah, I agree that they're dangerous. I love that name. I am promised myself to use it once a day. How about you?
You know what I use? I use panic peddlers.
Okay.
That's what I've been using. They are panic peddlers. I don't listen to panic peddlers because they're always into doom and gloom, okay? And I'm an optimistic person who loves this country and so proud of being an American. I'm a person of Italian descent, and I still communicate with my relatives in Italy, and I'm proud to be an American, and I'm thankful to my grandparents who made the sacrifice to come here back in the early part of the 20th century. And I wouldn't have the guts to do what they did, Sandy. I'm telling you, to leave their country, not being able to speak this language, and forge ahead.
I know it. It took a special kind of bravery, and that I am in awe of. And that's true for, a lot of people, especially those who take on the immigration system and come in the legal way. It's an uphill climb, and they do it. It takes years, and they do it. And I welcome every single one of those people who go through what they have to go through to become American citizens, because you have to really want to be an American to do that. The rest of us may be very proud of our heritage and proud to be Americans, but we were born here. It was a gift. Those people came here, with nothing, and became the backbone of a country because of their bravery and their work ethic. And you should be, and you are obviously extremely proud of of your ancestors, as am I, for that matter. Thank you so much for the call, Russ. I appreciate it very much. When you hear a call drop off, it means a line has opened up for you. The number is 617-266-6868. So what is your take on the economy? Do you see the winning, or are you more of a Chuck Schumer, New York Times, Democratic National Convention type of person? And nothing Trump does is positive. Are you on the winning side, or are you on the side of the panicans and the fearmongers? Dave in Medford, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for calling this morning, David.
I like the guy that was before you for a minute there. He said that they are peddlers of propaganda, and they like to push pessimism. You know something?
What?
That's when I know that we're doing well, because though they even lie when they were trying to lie for Biden and push the truth, when they lie about the economy and you boldface from this thing, you're looking at them like, you're still lying. You out of your mind? I said, we both go buy, we buy food, we buy groceries, we buy gas. You're telling me it stinks. I'm telling you, no, it doesn't. It's moving positively. Now, however the economy can move, because it's a giant, big thing, and you got tariffs.
You know how I think about it, Dave? Just to interrupt for a second. I think about it as, do you ever boat? You go in the water. You know, a little motorboat can putz around and make go do a 360 and all the rest. A ship takes football fields to stop. That's the economy. It takes forever to course correct because it is so large. Just to make your point.
Thing, because it's what was it way back? It was called trickle down.
Yeah,
remember that trickle down BS? This one seems to be starting right in the middle of all the populace, of all the people. It seems to have started right there. There was a change because people felt it. If the people on the street feel it, that's more important. That's why and I don't call them Democrats. I call them communist traitors, and I'm going to tell you something else. I don't call them Republicans either. They're a bunch of pansy butts that ain't doing nothing, even though we got 2 bills through. So either way, they're all, when they start lying big, because the people, and that's, I'm going to take all 50 states, are saying, hey, something is happening that is good. And that really sticks in their craw. Because you can't then take it out of the populace mouth because they feel it.
Yeah, they do. They do feel it. And that's what I always found to be shocking with some of the statements that were made by some of these moderators on CNN. And I don't have the cut of it, but it happened a week before last, I think, where Scott Jennings got into a fight with one of the other panelists on CNN because they said specifically eggs haven't gone down, they've gone up. He's like, I'm sorry, did you go into a store lately? Of course they've gone down. I mean, they just bold-faced lied and didn't expect to get a pushback on it. And the person that looks bad in that is the person representing the Democratic Party when they lied. When I can literally go to the store and see that eggs are no longer $6.99 a dozen. So it's like, they're not that, I don't know what she's talking about. It either tells me that she has never gone grocery shopping. She has somebody do it for her and has no idea, because she lives in a rarefied existence that has nothing touching the reality that the rest of us live in, or she's lying. It's one of those two things, Dave. So I'm not sure which one it is, but either one of them make me want to not trust her, don't you think?
My thing is that they're just plain lying, because you know what gets me? They actually follow a script, and when you go, and I don't watch all those talking heads, but I can listen to them, read the paper. It's like someone writes a script, and they all follow it, and it's like, look at people, look at.
Yeah.
We're not stupid. You're saying the same thing, so it's coming from the same place.
And David, a lot of times it's literally word for word. It's like there was a fax that went around or an email that went around saying, this is the line. And they literally, and you can usually tell because there's somewhere in the line is an odd word that you don't hear very often or a particular description of a policy. And the only way they could all get it is if they all had the same line delivered to them. So is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. That's why when it comes up, most people will say, oh, you got to be kidding me. Change the station. Yeah, look at I don't need to find out how bad the economy is. Give me another beer.
Yeah. Indeed. No, thank you for the call, David. I really appreciate it. And I agree with your insights. It is very disconcerting to have Chuck Schumer say one line, then have an MSNBC anchor say the exact same line, and then have somebody over on CNN say the exact same line on a panel. It's like, I'm sorry, was there a meeting and nobody invited the rest of us?
I do think data is worth watching every month,
but it's not.
But it seems like a lot of panic for no reason. You're getting matched reports every month.
It's not panic when we were promised on August 15th of last year that the price of eggs, that the price of bacon, and the price of apples.
69%.
Actually, eggs year over year are up by 20. Are up 27%.
They're down.
I'm sorry.
Since he took office, they're down.
But if year over year,
he promised when he took office they would go down.
Hold on, let's not fight about statistics here. She's right. Year over year, they are up significantly. Month over month, they've gone down, but that's from their high, which occurred partly due to bird flu and other things.
Right. So let's be very clear. He promised three things: the price of eggs, the price of bacon, and the price of apples were going to go down. I can quote him. It was on August 15th of last year. He said they're going to go down almost immediately when I become president. All of them are up.
What the bleep? That was Scott Jennings on a CNN panel. He told it, and it was not finished yet, by the way. So this is Scott Jennings faced with invincible ignorance, or I don't know, he's out of touch with Americans, with the rest of the country. She's either lying or she's delusional. I don't know what the panelist is, but Scott Jennings was not through yet. Cut number 115A. Sorry, Mike has the spinning wheel of death at the moment on the computer that plays the cuts. So we just have to suffer through it. This is what Dave and I were just talking about prior to going into the break, was that they literally look you in the eye and tell you that black is white and white is black. When you're not blind, you can see yourself. That is the problems. And I guess the question is, are Democrats shooting themselves in the foot with this negative response to President Trump's economic wins? We'll take a call while the spinning wheel of death plagues Mike. Oh, it's working. All right, so let's play the 115A. I guess it's not working. So let's go.
They're up year over year, and that's a fact. And these, you think it's hysteria or whatever you called it. People are suffering. You know how I know this? Because I heard all about that from you last year when I would debate you, and you kept talking about how the price of eggs is really high. Well, guess what? It's much higher now than it was when you and I were debating.
We're literally lying about the eggs.
Wait, excuse me.
They're down.
No, whoa.
Eggs are down.
Guys, stop. Okay, Scott, before you accuse her of lying, I literally just went over this. She is correct that year over year, the
Since
price...
Donald Trump took office, what happened to the eggs?
Oh my God! Do you not understand that the difference between...
Who was the president last year at this time?
Scott, do you understand?
And then when did they spike?
Julie, let me just resolve this so we can move on, because this is a silly conversation.
You totally derailed this conversation. She's trying to have a serious panel.
Scott, you are derailing the conversation.
No, I'm not.
Pardon me.
She's not telling the truth about the eggs.
But you're derailing the conversation, okay?
Yeah. I mean, he was not putting up with it. The lying, the bold-faced lying to the face. So, again, are responses like her response actually destroying the Democratic Party? When somebody tells me that it's day when it's 2:00 in the morning and, there's no sun shining, am I going to believe them when they tell me anything else? I don't think I am. Am I going to hire them for anything? Am I going to put my trust in them for anything? None of the above. That's how I feel. How do you feel about it? Let's talk to Frank in Weymouth. Frank, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Hey, Sandy. Thank you for taking my call this morning. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Hey, you know what? I'd like to start off by saying I'm a registered independent. I distrust the Republicans just as much as I do the Democrats, and I think they've earned the hate and earned my distrust. I think so as a person that could take a look at Donald Trump objectively rather than having my allegiance to one party or the other, I think that Donald Trump is doing a fantastic job financially. I think he is. I think regardless of what people want to say, egg prices are down. I know it's a little silly, to talk about egg prices, but they're down. And for someone like myself, who's working 3 jobs, if I could save $3 here and there, that's a lot of money to me.
It's a lot of money, Frank, to almost everybody now. And I was having this conversation with a caller a few weeks ago, and that is, you had to, under Biden, I literally had to draw a list of anything I was going to buy, and I had to stick to that list. And if there was a price change, I had to knock something else off my list when I went to the store. I have a little bit more leeway now. I don't have to drop stuff off. Every dollar matters at the grocery store, Frank. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry you have to do that. But unfortunately, that's a lot of us average Joes. Yeah. That's how we're living, and I don't think the politicians really care. But that's where we're at. Socially, I think Donald Trump's dropping the ball. I know it's not all him. He's got the media out for him. He's got the Democrats out for him. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot more he could be doing to try to reunite this country.
What would you like to see him do?
We got a lot of racial problems going on here. I'd like to see him try to curb that. Maybe open up talks, and I don't know what you can do at this point. I think that the Democrats have fueled the fire in that, and now we're going to have to wait it out, I guess.
Well, here's my question for you in regard to the race stuff, Frank, and for anybody else who's listening too. So, in his first term, President Trump did a lot for the African American community. They created community zones for businesses, low interest loans. The NAACP no longer had to go back and get refunded every year. They had permanent funding. He did a lot of things. I mean, the enrichment zones were one of them, but he did a lot of things, which is one of the reasons why I think he had a high level of African Americans voting for him in the last election. I think the discord that you see is not necessarily because he isn't trying. And maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to know what other people think about it. I think it's because you have the progressive left not wanting to fix the problem. And so they're trying to, instead of have a coming together of people, they want to separate us because it makes it easier to manipulate votes, to manipulate populations. It's easier to lie to people, basically, if you can separate them and they can't compare notes, so to speak. So I think that's what's happening. Do you think I'm wrong on that?
No, I agree with you. The Democrats are fueling the fire of racism in this country. Absolutely. Donald Trump's done a lot for the black community, again, financially, but I think there is a disconnect between the average white person and the average black individual, and I think that we all need to somehow come together. And Donald Trump, as the leader, I think, should be coming up with ideas. And again, his back's against the wall. I understand that. I'm not saying that it's going to ruin his presidency, but I think socially he could be doing better. I think.
Okay. Where else besides racial? Is there something else that you think he should be working on besides the racial communities, bringing people together?
Yeah, I think he should be. I think the more transparency is a good thing. Like I said, I've lost my faith in the United States government. I don't believe a word they say. And so I have conversations with my friends at this point I would say I don't even know if we went to the moon or not.
You know, Frank, you're not the only person I've heard this from. Our text number is 70470. 617 says, Sandy, I just got home from a cruise and I asked the bakery chef how many eggs a week does he use. He said between 8 and 10,000 eggs per week. And a price drop on eggs makes a huge difference. And it makes a huge impact on our household as well. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are going down and a lot of things aren't. And I have hopes that they will. It's just a matter of time. But the Democrats want you to believe that the sky is falling. You know, people like Chuck Schumer, who says the GDP surge is not a good thing. It's threatening the fact that our economy grew 3%. People like Elizabeth Warren, who says tariffs are bad. She was one of those people who said, you know, tariffs are going to cause a recession, as opposed to what they are doing, which is paying down our debt and solidifying a rock solid economy, which might in fact eventually mean rebates for lower and middle class Americans as well as, or income Americans, as well as a possible elimination of income tax. Now, there are former Democrat sycophants that are not buying the sky is falling routine by people like Schumer and Warren. They are, in fact, saying, wow, where did all this fear-mongering come from? This is Joe Kernan and Rick Santelli on CNBC. Cut 24, please.
The left and people that don't like the president and don't want things to work. And, you know, like Senator Elizabeth Warren will come on and say, inflation's out of control and the economy is getting killed by what's happening by these tariffs. This 3% with the market at new highs, and really we haven't seen inflation, you know, go up back to 3%. Maybe it will this week. Maybe we'll see it. But none of these horrible things have happened, but they still talk like it's happening. It's amazing.
Well, there's an important lesson there. Don't pick a congressman to be your money manager. That's what I would say. But in the end, Congress has their own reasons to point out certain things. And the Democrats, of course, as you pointed out, really don't want to see the current administration have some success. But there's no doubt that this is some success. We're seeing more horsepower. We're seeing better equities. Inflation really hasn't changed much in the last year or so.
So I think that is absolutely correct. Inflation has actually gone down a little bit, which is a very difficult thing to do. So people like Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, they're what President Trump calls panicans. So are you a panican, or do you think that President Trump is winning? Do you see the winning? Tom in Florida, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Tom?
Let me just take you off speaker, Sandy. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, first I just want to say, Sandy, we've been listening to Jeff since the very beginning, and you always do a terrific job filling in for him.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Sandy, I do want to talk about something, though, that nobody else, and we listen to everybody, believe me. We both voted Trump all 3 times. I'd vote for him again if he could run again. But my concern is there's 21.4 million people on the Affordable Care Act. Not even the Democrats are talking about this. And when those tax subsidies end, that's not going to go well for the GOP in the midterms.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that something needs to be done. We're not quite sure, how they're going to handle it yet, but they need to do something. I agree with you. It's going to be a big problem. Now, here's the thing that most people don't think about when they think of the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is not free health insurance, Tom. And a lot of people
it is for me.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me finish. It's not free health insurance for everybody. It is an income-driven thing. So there are people who buy insurance on the marketplace, the Affordable Care Act. If you are unemployed, or if you are disabled, or meet certain income requirements, it is free for you, like it is for you. But it's not for a lot of other people. And other people, they're sent there because it's the only place they can get insurance, and it's still very high. So I think there needs to be some kind of rapprochement between private healthcare or employer subsidized healthcare and a free and the marketplace. Like in Massachusetts, we have the marketplace for Romney care, so to speak, and it's still pretty expensive. But I don't think the Affordable Care Act was working for everybody. It was working for you. And I know it's going to be, you're very concerned about it, and you have every right to be concerned about it. And I'm worried about it with you, as are a lot of people. But there has to be a different answer to what they put up there. There can be subsidized health care. It's called, Medicaid. And there maybe more people go on to Medicaid, the government subsidized, that were under free health care under the Affordable Care Act. I'm not sure what the answer is. It's a huge knotty problem, the same way Social Security is a huge knotty problem, as you have more and more boomers going on it. It needs serious people making serious suggestions and not public posturing. And unfortunately, Tom, what we have right now is public posturing. And so there needs to be I think a conference or whatever. I think Donald Trump needs to turn his sizable brain energy onto the problem, and we need to sit down and talk about it. But I don't have a quick answer for you. I don't know anybody who does, because there is no easy answer for that problem. The Affordable Care Act is very flawed. It works for some people, not enough people. And so that's why it became unwieldy and is starting to disintegrate on itself. So even if the tax credits were going to go away, we're not going to go away. It still is going to collapse. So it needs to be fixed. It needs to another alternative brought up. What that is, I have no idea yet. It is something that I am watching and listening to people, and we'll try to figure it out. So I'm sorry that you have this concern, because it's a huge one. I know insurance is a huge concern. It drives a lot of our decisions, but I think you need to wait and see, or I think you need to, I don't know how proactive you are. Are you talking to your congressman in Florida or talking to your representatives about it, Tom? Have you been talking to them?
Well, no, because, Sandy, I'm 60 years old. I worked my entire life since I was 15.
Yeah.
And I just got approved for disability. It took me 10 months.
Oh, gosh.
Because my body's a wreck. Yeah.
Oh.
So I got Medicaid.
Yeah.
But there's a 2-year holding period to get Medicare. But I read in a letter that they sent me that I might be able to hold on to the Medicaid until I get Medicare.
Okay.
So I'm not just so concerned about me.
Yeah.
But you made some good points, as you always do.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I do.
And
it's
a
huge problem.
You taking my.
It's a huge problem, and it's not going to. And there is no easy solution for this. There never has been. I mean, President Obama tried to present this. This was the bomb is going to cure everything, and it basically destroyed a lot of our healthcare system in the process. So we'll have to figure it out. Like I said, we need serious minds on the issue. And I have faith that President Trump and his cabinet members will turn their eye toward it and start working on a solution. They seem to be picking off problem one by one. And so I'm hoping that the whole health insurance issue will move up the food chain a little bit and be something that they focus on relatively soon. Maybe it's something that we can subsidize with the tariffs. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah.
You
All right, Sandy. Well, thank you for taking my call. You do a great job.
Thank you, Tom.
Filling in for Jeff.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to David in Boston. David, welcome to WRKO. How are you, David?
I'm not happy yet with I'm not winning yet.
Okay.
I think they should start arresting liars and cheats.
Okay,
in the previous office.
All right. I understand people's dissatisfaction with that, but if you put that aside, what about on the economy? Let's put the liars and cheats over here, saying let's agree that yes, something has to be done, but what about the economy? Are you happy with the economy? Are you happy with immigration?
Coming down in pennies.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You were cut off in the beginning, David. You need to. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Well, the prices are coming down in pennies and nickels. I can see that, which is a plus.
Yeah.
And with the fuel, it's amazing how the fuel gets down to America from Canada. They ship it down and they drive it over the road on tankers. So you have to pay the fees of all these people running the ships and driving the trucks. And it's amazing how low the fuel prices are now.
Yeah, compared to what they used to be. David, I'm going to hold you over because we're going into a break. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner today. Winning, winning, winning. We'll get tired of winning. That's what President Trump promised us. Was he right? The economy is turning around. Paychecks are stretching further. Tariff deals are coming in and paying down the debt. Fuel and food prices are starting to go down. American jobs are increasing. We are on our way. But it's not just the economy, I think, which is the indicia of President Trump's winning policy. Another area that you could claim that we are winning at, and I alluded to this with Dave, who was on the phone before the break, who had to get off, would be the economy. I mean, not the economy, would be immigration. For the third month in a row, Border Patrol agents have released a grand total of, drumroll please, 0 illegals into the interior of the United States in July. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. That's a big difference from the peak of the border crisis during the Biden administration, which had tens of thousands of illegal immigrants released every single month. So, there's a laundry list of records that were broken during this past month of July, according to the DHS statistics that have gone out. Just 4,598 apprehensions along the U.S.-Mexico border for the month. That's a record low number. It's almost 500 fewer than the daily average set under the Biden administration, which was around a little over 5,000 per day. Nationwide, border agents have experienced a record low of 24,630 encounters during July. That's a 2.4% tick down from the month before and nearly a 90% drop from the monthly average under the Biden administration. Now, these are the statistics. These are the numbers, okay? The enormous drop in encounters has resulted in the elimination of the catch and release process where, overpopulated detention facilities had to release illegal immigrants to make space for the new ones that were coming in. And Border Patrol agents last May released a grand total of 0 migrants into the U.S. And then in June, they released 0 into the U.S. And then July, they released 0 into the U.S. So, and if you want a little more perspective on that, Border Patrol agents were forced to release roughly 62,000 migrants along the southern border in May of 2024, and another 27,766 in June of 2024 under the Biden administration. And that's according to ICE. Now, the Trump White House has previously referred to these milestones as the fastest improvement in American border security of all time. Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Do you approve? Do you think of this as winning? Now, it's interesting to think about what has been the Democratic response to this huge numbers drop in the border. Do they say this is excellent? This is really increasing our country's security? No. Elected officials, elected Democrat officials, let's put a name on it, Democrat officials have basically said, this is wrong, stop it. These are, these are elected officials and appointed judges. We have seen the stories of them aiding and abetting people who are breaking the law, throwing law and the Constitution out the window. Interim, actually, she's not interim anymore. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro, she was confirmed this weekend. Had this story specifically about. She posted this video the end of last week, telling the public about a man who's a 4-time deported illegal alien with felony convictions, working as a groundskeeper on Capitol Hill, and that ICE agents were trying to arrest him, and they were prevented from doing so. And she's got a lot of stories about how elected officials are hiding illegal aliens, some of which have multiple records. Cut number 114, please, Mike.
We have an individual who is a 4-time deportee. That means he's been deported 4 times. He's also an aggravated felon. Many felony convictions, that's why he was deported. But he managed to make it back. He is, in fact, working on Capitol Hill. He's not only working on Capitol Hill, he is working outside and apparently is involved working the grounds as a gardener or something. So we, with ICE, have been trying to arrest the individual. We are not allowed to go on Capitol Hill to make an arrest. We've been told that we're not allowed to do that. So ICE has been waiting for 8 hours to arrest this individual, and we're coming to the end of his shift, and he goes inside, and suddenly he's not available for an arrest. Now, ain't that swell? Here we are in the nation's capital fighting for truth and justice, and they're making sure that the illegals with criminal backgrounds get to stay.
Yeah, she gets a little snide there, but to be honest with you, I'm with her on being snide. I think snide is completely appropriate. So here we have the Trump administration closing the border and then seeking out for deportation those that are breaking the law who are here illegally, most of which have criminal records. But President Trump and ICE and our border czar, Tom Homan, have put it out there that if they have to go looking for somebody and who has a record, and with them is another illegal alien who doesn't have a record, both illegal aliens are going. That's what they said was going to happen. So when you hide in a community that has illegal aliens, you are putting all those other illegal aliens who don't have records at risk for deportation. They would otherwise be given an opportunity to self-deport. They wouldn't be just plucked out of wherever they are and put on a plane and gone. So they are putting themselves at risk and putting people that don't have records at risk. It's not the Trump administration that did that. It's those people who are breaking the law that did that. So here you have border closed, people being deported. This is good, right? This is what we all voted for. We're all on the same page, wouldn't you say? Except that there are lawmakers, the ones that, for instance, Jeanine Pirro was referencing in her video, that are trying to interfere with that. And they are Democrats. There's a dozen congressional Democrats that are suing the Trump administration to gain unfettered access to ICE facilities. And they accuse ICE and DHS of improperly blocking oversight into immigration detention centers. And they're accusing, they say that the system is horrible and that people are under in bad situations. But they don't seem to me to be really trying to, what's the word? Being honest. There don't seem to be any transparency about what they actually find. And they have so destroyed their credibility, I think, in things like the economy and other issues that when they go into a facility and say, oh, the conditions are horrible, it's like AOC going to the place in, this is a few years ago when she went into one of the detention facilities along the southern border. And then recently there was another, I think it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who went into Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. And they come out, and somebody else, there were other congressmen that come out and say, oh my God, they're drinking toilet water. No, they're not drinking toilet water. What happens is in these facilities, they have a water main pipe that comes in. They have a toilet on one side and a sink on the other. So you're not drinking out of the toilet, you're drinking on a sink, but they both come out of the same pipe. It's a single unit to save money. And, it's what's used in, a lot of prisons and places where, it's just cost effective, but it's not hygienically the same thing. You have a separate, faucet and sink, and then you have the other side is a toilet. That's with its own, that is what they're representing, is drinking toilet water. And so when they lie about stuff like that, you can't trust them when they actually do have something to say. That is my point. So I think that they are, I don't believe a word of it when I hear them say about how horrible something is in whatever facility that they go into, because they've lied about other facilities. Now, the Trump administration is allowing oversight visits, but all they do is they ask lawmakers to give a week's notice before visiting, and that's a security issue. And they also deem that certain DHS facilities, like ICE field offices, are off limits. And so the Democrats say, well, that's unlawful. You can't ask that. And they're asking the court to block the administration from putting these policies into effect. They're claiming we need to do our job. That the big mouthpiece on this is California Democrat Rep. Jimmy Gomez. And he's the guy that earlier, in the beginning of July, he appeared to be under the impression that a marijuana growth site raided by ICE agents was a regular farm, and was asking on social media how many MS-13 gang members are waking up at 3 a.m. to pick strawberries. Oh yeah, 0. I mean, and not only that, that's the place where they found the minors that were being, trafficked and abused. But no, he doesn't mention anything about that. And don't forget, this is the same group of people. You had that visit to Newark, New Jersey, and an immigration detention center in last May that turned into a free-for-all when Mayor Ross Baraka was denied immediate entry and tried to push his way inside. And that's when New Jersey Rep. LaMonica McIver was charged with assaulting ICE officers. That's the kind of bad behavior that they're doing. And then they're lying about what they see. Or if they're not lying, they've destroyed their credibility to the point where I don't believe what they say anymore. I think that's a big part of the problem. So you have a positive thing happening in immigration in this particular instance. You have the border closed, the deportations are happening, criminals are being deported out of here, and they're not going after women and children, no matter what the Democrats say, unless that woman or child is illegal and with the criminal. Then yes, maybe, because they happen to be with the criminal. But it was their fault for the criminal hiding with somebody, going right into their community where other illegals are and putting them all at risk of deportation. That's what's happening. But that's not what the Democrats want you to believe. And in their zeal to paint this as this whole policy of deportation, of getting rid of the illegals as something fascist, I think what they're doing is basically, how would I put it? I think what they're doing is they're making themselves appear foolish and actually nutty. People like Jasmine Crockett, the Democratic rep from Texas, who's become pretty much of a mouthpiece for the progressive left on Congress, who just comes out and calls Trump a Hitler for trying to close the border. Cut 52, please, Mike.
What are your Republican colleagues telling you, whether it's OTR or even just flat out discussing this? And do you think there will be a vote next week whether or not to require these grand jury documents to be released?
I absolutely think that they are going to run away with this as quickly as possible. We saw a number of Republicans that just skipped previous vote this week. So I don't anticipate that we will get to any resolution on this. I think that they want to, again, straddle the fence. They want to show that they are loyal to this, I don't even know what to call him. I've called him so many things. But this wannabe Hitler, for sure. They want to pledge their loyalty to him, and they know that he does not want this released. I think that they also are concerned about the damage that it may do. If he's trying to hide it, they understand that it is most likely problematic for him, as well as the MAGA brand, as well as the Republicans. So I don't anticipate that they will be on board for doing anything that may harm them or their fearless leader.
Now, that particular cut was one about the release of the documents, but I mean, she uses that same phrase over and over again: "Want to be Hitler, want to be Hitler, want to be Hitler," and leaders like her and people like her who keep putting that forth, that ICE officers, are fascist stormtroopers, and people turn around and see that their streets are better, that the towns along the southern border now are no longer overrun. They can actually send their kids to school. They have money now for their medical facilities, their clinics. They have, they just have a better level of, or a better standard of living because the border is closed and because there's action being taken on the illegal immigrants that were sucking the resources out of them. I think they turn and they look at people like Jasmine Crockett, like any of these other legislators, like these, like the mayor of LA, who wanted to completely and utterly deny that there was a problem in with the migrant surge, who actually came out and said, Mayor Karen Bass in an NPR interview actually came out and said that the migrant surge did not cause problems in LA. Cut number 14, please, Mike.
During the Biden administration, early on, immigration was in fact surging in this country and at a chaotic level. A number of Democratic officials at state and local levels complained to the White House. Did the influx of migrants, generally from Central America, cause problems in Los Angeles, and what were they?
Well, let me just tell you that during those years I was in Congress, I can absolutely emphatically say no, they did not cause problems in the city of Los Angeles. And let me tell you too, that when Abbott was sending migrants to our city, because we've had such a long history of immigrants coming to the city, we have very strong institutions that work with them, nonprofit community organizations that have been in existence for almost 5 decades. And so they do have an elaborate network of infrastructure and support that probably a lot of other cities don't have. And so we were able to deal with people coming in the city.
I'm kind of shocked. Are you shocked by that? I mean, even though I know I shouldn't be because I'm getting used to it, she didn't think there'd be a problem. Has anybody seen the homelessness and the misery that is in LA? The fact that bubonic plague was coming back to Los Angeles. I mean, they have no resources anymore. People are fleeing LA. Their property values are plummeting because of, and a big part of that is the illegal immigration. And she completely turns a blind eye. But let's not forget that this is the woman who went to, where did she go? Ghana, when her city was burning down during the wildfires. I mean, she just went on vacation. So, I mean, she just does not look at reality. And I think that attitudes like that, in the face of everyday experiences, when things are getting better, when resources are becoming more available, when the day-to-day misery that you saw on the streets does not exist anymore, or is lessened than what it would be. You compare what you actually see under Trump's immigration policies versus what the elected officials are telling you, and you look at that, and also their efforts to hide illegal aliens. And what is your response to that? Is your response, yeah, I want to support them? Or is your response is Trump is doing a good job and he's winning? So who, when you balance those two things, comes out on top? Is it the naysayer Democrats, the ones who refuse to look at the damage done by illegal aliens and who claim that Trump is Hitler? Or is it Hitler over here on the other side? Is it President Trump who is, in fact, closed the borders and is doing an orderly deportation of illegal aliens? What do you think, Dan in New Hampshire? Welcome to WRKO.
Okay, I called in about the tariffs, but I will.
That's
touch
fine.
on that.
I got no problem talking about it. It's all part of the same thing, Dan.
Yeah, I'll go to tariffs after. I'll start with this. People got to realize the crisis was caused with open borders, well over 21 million illegal criminals coming into the country and created unaffordable housing. That's where they created the crisis. Okay. And then you got a Nashua Democrat, state legislator, Paige Marie, who is on the Nashua watch list, interfering with ICE raids in Nashua last week. Okay? So they're making it dangerous for ICE and the illegals when they're trying to do their job. So they need to. She should be taken out. She should be, she should be voted off legislators. Quite frankly, to be doing that kind of stuff as a legislator. Interfering with the law is a big problem.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I will touch on a couple of things that your caller said. People got to remember, during Trump's first term, Trump tried to open up buying insurance over state lines in all 50 states, create competition, and lower the prices of insurance. So maybe you're right. I agree with you. He should reach out to some of his congressmen who are very close to Trump, like Steve Mills and Byron Donald, who's running for governor, might even be his next governor. And on top of it, you're absolutely right. Trump funded HBCUs and guaranteed it for 10 years, opportunity zones in the Trump tax bill to help create small businesses in black communities. And school choice, no matter what your race is or zip code, no child is left behind. And criminal justice reform to stop the wrongful jailing of black Americans that was done by the Democrats, corrupt Joe Biden, and who were pushing this stuff, So that's pretty much all the points on that I had to say. Now I'll go on to the tariff.
Okay.
People got to understand here, tariffs are being used to force companies back to the U.S. Free markets don't exist. Virtually every foreign nation was eating a lunch under Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Biden, charging the U.S. outrageous tariffs well over 250%, like chicken, 263% tariffs. And you're absolutely right. 1870 to 1913, the U.S. charged 40% tariffs. It was the U.S.'s richest period of our country's history. And Trump campaigned on this stuff. Anybody that went to a rally or watched him, he talked about instead of taxing our citizens to enriching foreign nations, we should be taxing and tariffing foreign nations to enriching our citizens. And people got to look at, well, how did this start? It's the dirty, corrupt globalist Federal Reserve that was installed central banking cartel controlled by the globalist Rothschild family and the Morgans, okay? And it was the most successful counterfeiting operation in the history of mankind. They print worthless paper, sell it to the foreign government for interest, paying government bonds, and then they sell it to the investors, reserving a cut for themselves. Every dollar printed by the Fed without corresponding increase in GDP makes the dollar buying power and retirement accounts worthless. Printing pallets of dollars, along with the crippling national debt, weakens the dollar, creating inflation. Inflation is not caused by raising the interest rate. It doesn't combat inflation. It doesn't. It just doesn't.
No, I agree with you. It doesn't, Dan. It doesn't at all. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but every college football game I have gone to or watched on television, at some point Mr. Brightside is played, and there is a sing-along in the entire stadium. It's a very strange thing that's happened over the past few years. 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868 is the number here. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner, who is on a road trip with his son and will be back today. He'll be back on the air tomorrow. The text number is 70470. The text line on the text line is 617, who says, Sandy, President Trump bargains from a position of power. Countries want to do business with the U.S., and the president negotiates from that position. Other administrations have not used that leverage, instead selling out union workers, innovators, and blue-collar workers with lopsided tariffs and regulations. The reduction of regulations and fair trade policies will help the U.S. economy. I completely agree with that. That is exactly what I think is happening. And the Democrats are fit to be tied over it. They are panicking because they see their policies going up in smoke because their policies created economic misery, and President Trump's economic policies are restoring a balance and a sense of consumer confidence and a sense of hope for the future in the country. And as the Democrats panic, they start to become desperate and exhibit, in my opinion, pretty bizarre behavior, desperate behavior. And this was recently most apparent over the weekend. I don't know if anybody, it was a beautiful weekend. You might have gone and done something fun as opposed to watching the news. But on Saturday, after hours of negotiations in the U.S. Senate over the confirmation of President Trump's nominees, the whole thing collapsed following a decision by President Trump to end the talks after what he called an egregious demand from, yes, you guessed it, Senate Minority Leader Chuckles Schumer. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump accused Schumer of attempting to extort over $1 billion in exchange for allowing a vote on a very small number of nominees who had already received bipartisan committee support. This is what the president posted. This demand is egregious and unprecedented and would be embarrassing to the Republican Party if it were accepted. It is political extortion by any other name. Let me just turn the page. I have it on two different pages there. Tell Schumer, who is under tremendous political pressures from within his own party, the radical left lunatics, to go to hell, in all caps. He then instructed Republican lawmakers to reject the offer outright. He says, do not accept the offer. Go home and explain to your constituents what bad people the Democrats are and what a great job the Republicans are doing and have done for our country. Have a great recess and make America great again, is what he writes. So, that was the president. And then Chuck Schumer, despite the failure of the negotiations, he tried to characterize the outcome as a win for Democrats. And he had a little press conference standing beside a poster-sized image of President Trump's post and accused the president of walking away from the policy. But, I'm not sure that that's the case. The Senate Democrats were seeking to unfreeze billions in funding for the National Institute of Health, yes, the people that brought you COVID, and foreign aid programs, such as you said, and to secure a commitment from the White House not to propose further clawbacks. In other words, they were trying to gut a lot of the swamp cleaning that President Trump had done. And in return, they would support the confirmation of these very non-controversial nominees that were up for the vote. So that's what happened. So my question is, in regard to this, we walked away from the negotiations, but was that actually a win for President Trump, if you think about it? Because he didn't cave to what was going on. This was unprecedented by the Democrats, refusing to confirm any of Trump's nominees by voice vote or unanimous consent. By comparison, Joe Biden had 57% of his nominees pass through those processes. But in this particular case, Chuck Schumer absolutely refused. So did Trump do the right thing here, walking away from negotiations? And even though he did not get his nominees put through, was this a win for Trump, not caving to extortion from Chuck Schumer? Is this another win? Bob in Raynham, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Bob?
Hey, Sandy. Good. How you doing? I'm
doing fine, sir. So what do you think? Was this another win? Did Trump do the right thing walking away?
Yes, definitely. This is they have to end. You wash my back, I'll wash yours. That's a big problem. Why we're in the mess we're in. Even if they're not taking envelopes, they're compromising their positions and everything else. Based on that philosophy. But I'd like to go back to the immigration issue, and then President Trump's first 70 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
First of all, to me, when I wake up every morning now, instead of in the past 4 years when I'm like, I'd wake up and I'd hear something and I'd be like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's so refreshing to have a president, whatever you think of him personally, that truly does want to make America great again. And as an American, how can anyone be opposed to that philosophy? I mean, I would think any ruler of any country wants their country to be as best as they can be. You know, any CEO of any company, why would you ever, especially as the United States of America, deal from a...
I got to hold you there right there, Bob. Hang on, and we'll come back to you on the other side of the break. We're up against a hard break. 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868. We were talking about President Trump's policies that are putting America first. Before we went to the break, we were talking with Bob and Raynham, and have these policies resulted in wins for all of us? Bob, I'm sorry that we were interrupted. Go right ahead.
Hey, Sandy. Yeah, and I'd like to continue with the immigration issue. Actually, I wish everyone would stop referring to it as an immigration issue because it has nothing to do with immigration. It was an invasion perpetrated by traitors. And if this were to continue, the history of America would have been lost, and all the great men and women who have preceded us and who have given the ultimate sacrifice would have all died in vain because of these traitors that have allowed this invasion. In like 50 years, all these people, if they're allowed to stay and continue to come, will, as Obama wished, will fundamentally change America, and there will be no link to our past. And we're going to become just part of the New World Order and just another place. And we have to look long term and actually be selfish in guarding our country, which is our country.
I agree with that, Bob. I completely agree with that. I mean, I, like you and many other people, I feel compassion for people who need our help. I don't see where you can be a caring human being and not care what happens to other people. But you have to be in a position to help other people, and you have to do it in an orderly fashion. And so you help your own people, you get your own economy running, and then you do what you can for others. And what happened under the Biden administration, which actually was really started under the Obama administration, because let's not forget Clinton was all for closing the border and deportations as well, is that, they wanted to bring people in a helter-skelter fashion because it was a means of taking over the country. It was a means of taking our tax dollars. It was a means of basically communism. And that's what the whole, our new world order is, I guess, the more appropriate way to put it these days. That's what was happening. And I think that's what you're alluding to. And I agree with that. And so the first step in getting a hold on things is what President Trump has done, which is close the border, deport those who are here illegally, especially the criminals. And then maybe some of the other people who are here illegally, maybe you find a way to bring, if they have no criminal record, maybe you find a way to bring them into the system so that they can work towards citizenship or a green card or whatever legitimization that you want to do. I think that you can do that, and I think he's doing it. I think that's right for everybody. And when we are up and ticking and we are solid and we've taken care of our own people, our vets, our homeless, the people who lived here, who maybe worked and fell in hard times, but who are Americans, then you can start looking on what can we do to help in another country. But I think that we have to start with our own people first. And I don't think that's cruel or lacking empathy. Do you, Bob?
No, I don't. The old saying, charity begins at home. And you have to take care of your own first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree with that. Thank you so much for the call, Bob. I appreciate it. The number is 617-266-6868. When you hear a call drop off, it means that there is a line that has opened up for you. The ones who do not appear appreciative of the president's wins are the Democrats, and they seem to be getting crazier and crazier every day, and so much so that I am concerned that they will self-destruct, basically go and, become extinct. And I've made that, the poll question today, which you can take at WRKO/Kuhner Report. It's also on Jeff's handle on X, which is at the Kuhner Report. And the question, and it's brought to you, before I forget, by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Thank you, Mario's. And the question is the Democratic Party looking at extinction? That's because I think they are. I think they are Looney Tuning their way into a position where nobody trusts them, nobody believes them, and they'll have absolutely no influence and not be able to win any more elections. Some people say that's a good thing. I think the current incarnation of the Democratic Party, that would be a good thing, but I think we need two parties in order to have a healthy political system. Currently, 71% think that the Democratic Party is heading to extinction. Those are scary numbers, don't you think? 29% still have faith that they can pull it out, but I'm not sure that they can, to be honest with you. It's not just up on Capitol Hill that you see the Looney Tunes stuff, the bad behavior, the crazy thinking, and that they are and I think what they believe is that they are actually convincing you that President Trump is the bad orange man and is incapable of doing anything positive for the country. And what their premise is that you need to follow them and take everything they say as gospel truth, no matter how bizarre or how at odds with the facts those statements may be. And for instance, last week, the progressive left tried to convince you that American Eagle genes were the chosen genes of white supremacists in this country, for the fact that they hired a blonde, blue-eyed actress model named Sydney Sweeney to sell their wares, to sell those jeans. And she did this ad. I'm going to play the ad for you. Cut number 1B, please, Mike.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very genes.
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny ad. American Eagle, by the way, sold out the jeans. I think they're laughing all the way to the bank at the progressive left, which are screeching from the rooftop about how this is a dog whistle for racism and how she's obviously a white supremacist. I think J.D. Vance actually explained it pretty well. He was on the Ruthless podcast, and he was basically mocked Democrats over calling Sydney Sweeney a Nazi. Cut 105, please, Mike.
Sydney Sweeney represents like a Nazi white supremacy issue. Do you think it's that deep, and do you think attacking Sydney Sweeney is how they can win back young males?
Is that a good move? Yeah, my political advice to the Democrats is continue to tell everybody who thinks Sydney Sweeney is attractive is a Nazi. that appears to be their actual strategy. I mean, it actually reveals something pretty interesting about the Dems, though, which is that you have like a normal all-American beautiful girl doing like a normal jeans ad, right? They're trying to sell jeans to kids in America, and they have managed to so unhinge themselves over this thing. And it's like, you guys, did you learn nothing from the November 2024 election? Like, I actually thought that one of the lessons they might take is we're going to be less crazy. The lesson they have apparently taken is we're going to attack people as Nazis for thinking Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Great strategy, guys. That's how you're going to win the midterm.
Yeah. I mean, it was an unhinged thing to do, yet they still did it. And here's what happens when you do things like that. The Democratic Party's image has eroded to its lowest point in more than 3 decades. That is according to a new Wall Street Journal poll, with voters seeing Republicans as better at handling most issues that decide elections. I was just looking at the survey this morning. It finds that 63% of voters hold an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party. That's the highest share that the Wall Street Journal has found dating back to 1990, and it's 30 percentage points higher than the 33% who hold a favorable view. They're 30% underwater. That is a far weaker assessment than voters give to either President Trump or the Republican Party. They're just like, Democrats are nuts. And they've been hoping, meaning the Democrats, have been hoping that a voter backlash against the president will be powerful enough to restore their majority in the House in the midterms, in the midterms coming up, much as it did during President Trump's first term. But this Journal poll shows that the party hasn't done what they needed, hasn't gotten that first step in that plan, which is persuading voters that they can do a better job than President Trump. 781 says, I was so happy to hear your voice this morning. Thank you. That's really kind. I appreciate that. I live in a very nice town north of Boston. During the 4 years of Joe Biden's reign of terror, crime, including gunfire in front of my house, got so bad I bought a police scanner just to keep abreast of what was happening. It would be going off constantly, and I mean constantly, 24 hours a day, quite often hearing the words language barrier in the calls. Now that President Trump has gotten into the office, the scanner is so much calmer, often silent for long periods of time during the day, and especially at night. Crime is down. This alone tells how much things have changed. Things are definitely getting better, even after only a few months. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you so much. On behalf of President Trump, I'm saying thank you. I think that, and for making my point, I think that's exactly right. The crime is down. The border is secure. The economy is doing better. Yet Dems would have you believe, in particular in response to 781's text, that law enforcement and deporting criminal illegal aliens is a bad thing. It's a bad thing. And because of that, my question is, are Democrats destroying themselves in these irrational responses to President Trump's successes? I mean, don't you find it bizarre? This week, as the House of Representatives started, its summer recess, and Dems, apparently, according to their internal memos and their PR things that they've sent out, Democrats are planning to use the coming weeks to hold town hall meetings, in their districts, to make the case against Trump's agenda. And, making fun of his norm-breaking governing style. They're hoping for a repeat of this past spring's recess, when you had these angry voters flooding into town hall meetings and heckling Republican lawmakers and challenging them to do more to push back against President Trump. But the thing about that is, first of all, I'm not quite sure some of those people weren't, for sale, weren't paid agitators. But secondly, can this work? Can this actually work? I'm not sure that this is something that is going to be repeated, to be honest with you. When you look at it, will the anger and the misinformation that the Dems are putting out there cause a repeat of the 2018 midterms? That's what they're hoping will happen when they do that. And what they want, what they're aiming for is a resurgence for their party. Do you think that's going to work? Is it going to be a resurgence, or are they just shooting themselves in the foot and hastening their own demise? Are they actually looking at obliteration? If you watched any of these disaster movies, an Ellie, an extinction level event, I don't think it's going to be a resurgence, to be honest with you. Because firstly, the political environment today looks a lot different than it did in 2018. If you look back to just before the 2018 election, more voters then called themselves Democrats than Republican. I think it was like a 6 percentage point difference, according to the Wall Street Journal polling. And that Democratic tilt meant that many Republicans were running uphill, even, before they started. It kind of depends on what the makeup of their House district was, but, it was an uphill battle. Now, this time, more voters are identifying as Republicans than as Democrats. It's a significant change in the structure of the electorate. Republicans last year built a very durable lead, and I think it was the first time they had in like 3 decades. And they have maintained that lead. More voters now identify as Republicans than as Democrats. It's just by a little bit, by 1 percentage point. But that's a big deal. When asked how they would vote if the election were held today, more voters in the recent Wall Street Journal poll said they would back a Democrat for Congress over Republican. I think 46 to 43%. And that's a big change for the Democrats at this stage, because at this stage in the last election, in the 2018 election, the Democrat lead was like 8 percentage points. So this, to me, is very hopeful that this Democratic strategy is not working. I think it's going to really backslide on them, and not just not work in getting people through, but I think what it's going to do is cause a catastrophe for them. I think instead of gaining people, they're going to lose people by the droves. And plus, on top of that, add to the fact that Republicans have built a financial advantage at, this early in the election cycle, because if you look at the campaign finance reports that came out this past week, they show that the Republican National Committee ended the first half of the year with more than $80 million on hand. And that's compared to the $15 million that's held by the Democrats' national campaign arm. The Democrat committee raised roughly 20% less than it did in the first 6 months of 2021. And that's a comparable period. So that's basically why I have hope that they're not going to win the election. But I think it's going to be more than just that. I think what they're going to do is blow themselves up. What do you think, Jim in Tingsboro? Are the Democrats looking at an Ellie?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I am fine. So what do you think of the future of the Democrats?
Oh, forget it. They're history. I mean, I can't wait until they're done. I mean, case in point, I've recently had the misfortune of dealing with a company that's obviously run by Democrats. I mean, I require a mobility through a power wheelchair, and the one that I got, I've had it for 3 months, and it's been falling apart ever since. And come to find out, the company I'm dealing with, they've literally, destroyed the company. I mean, we had a tech out here at the house who obviously didn't know anything about it. He made a comment to my home health aide, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" I said, "They said what?" And I got to say, she's listening to us as we talk now.
Mm-hmm. Said, "We don't care. We're the only ones."
Yeah, they got a highfalutin attitude, and they kind of left me hanging with this thing. And now,
so they can't fix it? Is that what you're saying? So they came out and they really don't care if they fix it or not? That's what I'm hearing from you?
They don't even care to fix it.
No.
Wow.
They're not trying.
Are they going to replace it for you?
No, nothing.
No, in other words, the first question when I made the deal with this guy, I don't know if I can just say the name of the company. I don't want to do that on your show, but if that's okay, I will tell you.
No, I wouldn't do that yet, because I don't know. It's something we would do off the air, not on the air. Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
They're kind of like slapping the handicapped in the face.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And it's like they're just the worst company ever.
Well, why do you think they were run by Democrats? What's making you think that?
I'm like, you got to be kidding! This is not the way you talk to people. I mean, when they told her with the greatest things, what did they say? That
they don't care because they're the only ones.
Yeah, they claim that they're the only company out there. And wow. I'm like, I don't know how I ever got mixed up with them. It was through a suggestion that I went with them.
Yeah. They even handicapped kids.
Yeah,
without
they're leaving handicapped children
Oh my gosh.
without assistance. You know,
Oh.
and
Jim.
it's all over the web. I mean, the whole thing on this company is on the web now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm gonna be on the phone, ringing the phones across the state, trying to get a complaint filed through the Department of Justice in Massachusetts. I don't know if it'll carry any weight, but
Jim,
like I said,
do something for me. When we hang up, don't hang up the phone. Let Mike pick up and get your phone number off air, because I'd like to talk to you about this, okay?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. So, well, I'm so sorry that you're going through that, Jim. I mean, seriously, on a political level, do you think that attitude that you're talking about, which I can see why it resonated with you, of, do what we say, we have complete control. Anybody who disagrees with us, who cares? I mean, that's the kind of attitude that I see from the Democratic Party, and that's the kind of attitude that I think is destroying them. But maybe that's just me.
They seem to think that they're the greatest thing around.
Yeah, I know. Well, Jim, hang on for Mike. I appreciate the call. He'll pick up and get your phone number for me if you don't mind. Thank you so much for taking the time and trouble to call. Let's go to Tom in Brockton. Tom, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Doing okay, Sandy. Doing all right.
So do you think that the Dems are destroying themselves? Are we looking at an Ellie for them?
I think they keep going further and further to the left and further to some of the craziness. My history being a member of the building trades, a member of a very good labor union. I'm 65, but, in 1988, I went as a delegate to the Democratic Convention out in Springfield, Massachusetts. I also went to the Democratic Convention in 1989 at Walter Brown Arena at Northeastern University in Boston. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started hearing that term progressive being thrown around then. And I viewed a lot of those people back then as just malcontents. And what I remember as a Democrat, as a young man in my 20s and 30s, is to strive for middle-class status. And the big part of that was single-family home ownership. And that goal now for a young person, especially in a state like Massachusetts, is pretty much unattainable. I mean, even if you're making $100,000 a year, how the hell are you going to be able to afford a $600,000 mortgage? Yeah. And where are you going to come up with 3% down, for even a mortgage when you're going to have PMI insurance? And I just don't see this. I really think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make this country into Western Europe, of where you live in apartment buildings, you don't own land. And as Klaus Schwab once famously said, in the future, you will own nothing and you will be happy and you will live in 15-minute cities. Yeah. And I'm sorry, we're not Singapore. I understand why Singapore has certain, restrictions on automobiles because it's a small land mass. But what I see has happened with England, France, Germany, and other parts of Western Europe with the massive migration of people basically from Africa and the Middle East, it's not working. And to me, it's slow suicide, and somebody will call in or whatever, or somebody's thinking right now, wow, is this guy a racist? Maybe so. I don't care anymore. That word means nothing to me. But at some point, you have to realize this is not working. This is not good for the future of the country. And it all goes back to me with Obama. And when he famously said, after being elected in 2008, to fundamentally change and transform America as we know it. And I don't want to fundamentally change and transform America as I know it. I want to go back to the America of 1987, of where we enforced our immigration laws. And the biggest mistake that President Reagan ever did was he signed that amnesty bill. It should have been that you will criminally go after employers that hire illegals. You will not allow states to fund people here that are unlawfully. And what has happened? It's just gotten worse. And in Massachusetts, when I came back in late 2002 to work on the Big Dig, the state's population was 6.1 million people. We're now pushing 7.3 million. Did we go through a baby boom? No, we did not. It's been through immigration. And you wonder why on your Sunday afternoons and your Saturday afternoons, the major arteries are clogged in the state. Well, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. And I've had a chance to travel overseas, and you get a very different perspective when you go to a foreign country. And you're also told in that foreign country that you're to obey their laws. If you don't, you're going to get a knock in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So,
no,
I don't know, Sandy, but I love what Trump is doing. And this nonsense about ICE agents are acting like fascists. Well, what I say to highly educated white liberals that I went to high school with on social media, what is Antifa doing? And what are these protesters doing? Wearing masks over their faces. Same thing ICE doing, hiding their anonymity. But the difference is with ICE is that you have people that openly want to give that information to the cartels so they can take out their families to intimidate them.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what they want to do. But to your earlier point, I think that President Trump has demonstrated that there is an option to this new world order, and his view is highly successful, and that's what is causing this horrific response by the Democrats. But what I'm seeing, I think, Tommy, is that the more they fight against Trump, the worse they look. Because what we're seeing is essentially the exact opposite of what happened under the Biden administration. They promised transparency, never gave it. Like a point I made to a caller earlier today, President Biden would go 9-10 months without speaking to anybody, any member of the press. President Trump has a press gaggle in his office every day, and if it's not in his office, it's on the lawn. If it's not in the lawn, it's on Marine One or it's on Air Force One. Every single day we see the president. Maybe he takes the day off to play golf, but very rarely. And so we have transparency. President Biden famously declared the border is closed. Well, really? Because we've been inundated with, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants. I think it's more than that at this point. I think it's millions of illegal immigrants at this point. So, but Trump is the one that actually closed the border and has put a deportation process in place. In regard to the economy, President Biden tried to sell us on the fact that a GDP growth of 2% or less, or 1.5%, is the new norm. Actually, that was Obama's words, that was the new norm when they couldn't get, when they put their economic policies into place and the economy started to tank. They said, no, this is the new normal. It'll never see above 2% again. We just had a 3% surge. So I think that coming up against the face of failure of their policies has, instead of making them say, oh, maybe I was wrong. Some of them have done that, but not very many have said, oh, maybe I was wrong. I need to go back and rethink this. Instead, they say, no, you didn't see that. It doesn't exist. And I think that they're destroying their credibility to the point where they can't recover. I think that's what's happening. Thank you so much for the call, Tommy. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number here. If you want to join us when a caller drops off, a line has opened up for you. Let's go to Ronnie in Boston. Ronnie, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Sandy. Wonderful to hear your voice today.
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome. The Democrats have so many problems. The fact that their policies are super unpopular is really easy, low-hanging fruit. But there's two other big reasons, too. Number one, the Democrat Party is a party of total cowards. Say whatever you want about Republicans. They show up day in and day out to take hostile interviews from a hostile press. When's the last time you ever saw Liz Warren, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Chuck Schumer, you name the Democrat? When do they ever sit down with opposition media? They only sit down with the friendliest of media. They never reach over to the other side ever, and they will never, ever make a comeback until they learn how to do that. When AOC can sit down with Sean Hannity, when Rashida Tlaib can sit down with Laura Ingraham, when Pete Buttigieg can sit down with Mark Levin, maybe they have a chance. But the biggest problem of all, in my opinion, Sandy, but Democrats have completely demonized and rejected traditional masculinity and traditional femininity. Look at the female leaders on the Democrat Party. They are insufferable, undateable feminists. And you look at the men. Who do you pick as if I said, name me a strong masculine Democrat politician? I mean, who do you pick? There's nobody. Their men are extremely weak. Their women are extremely insufferable. And the party as a whole has just become a haven for violent revolutionaries and sexual deviants. That's how they're seen by the country.
Yeah.
Horrible America worst policies, globalists, and sexual deviants that are made up by insufferable, unfeminine women and unmasculine men. And until they learn how to become a masculine party again, a feminine party again, a party that embraces traditional family values, traditional American values, this party is light years away from that, and they have nobody to bring them back to the center. I think John Fetterman is the one lone, voice in the desert, of reason in that party.
And when did you ever think we'd say that? When did
Right.
you ever think, when he ran for office, when he was still suffering damage from a stroke and didn't, said at the beginning of his debate, said, hello, goodbye, everybody. It's like, whoever thought that John Fetterman would become the voice of reason for the Democrat? Because I agree with you. He is. He is actually somebody who thinks about each issue and doesn't give a knee-jerk response based upon what the Democratic talking points are. He actually responds the way he thinks. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. A new Wall Street Journal poll has Dems' favorability hitting a 35-year low at the same time that the GOP is gaining trust. And this is from the Democratic pollster, John Anzalone, who is the guy who did the survey for the Wall Street Journal. He says the Democratic brand is so bad that they don't have the credibility to be a critic of Trump or the Republican Party. He says until they connect with real voters and working people on who they're for and what their economic message is, they're going to have problems. And those problems seem to be compounding. The Democratic Party's grip on voters is slipping. While Dems once enjoyed a 6-point registration edge back in 2017, Republicans are now leading that. They're the ones that are ahead. That's pretty bad news for the Democratic Party. I mean, especially if you count the fact that they are counting on all these illegal aliens to help them. Even with that, they're not doing that well. And if we had a multi-party coalition government, that the Democratic numbers would not be so bad if you have multiple parties. But we live in a two-party system of government. And, the Green Party notwithstanding, those are not serious parties. I mean, the people in them are serious. I don't mean to denigrate them. I'm just saying that they don't really hold any weight. But if you're in a two-party system, being down by 30 points underwater there is devastating. And they've hung their future on some, 80-20 issues like children and gender and fairness in women's sports. You see it, in the issues regarding Israel, Hamas, and Gaza. You see it with the agenda of Mandami in New York, who wants radical redistribution and his quest for, Marxism and Castro-style communism. That's what we, what's going on with them. And they don't even seem to realize that the GOP, the Republicans, don't have to be perfect to win in November in the next midterm election. They just have to be more appealing than the alternative. It's like that saying that goes, if you're being chased by a bear with your friend, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun my friend. And that's the same thing here. The Republicans just have to have a little more appeal than the Democrats. And the Democratic Party, in their psychotic, knee-jerk hatred of everything President Trump stands for and everything he does, every policy he puts forth, whether it's successful or not, keeps them, looking uglier, nastier, and more unhinged. And I think it's going to be the death of them. I think that is what is eventually going to kill them. So that is my question for you. Have they gone too far? Are they actually looking at extinction as opposed to just a trouncing in the next election? Now, some Democrats have sounded the alarm about what's happening. People like Barack Obama, he's told members of his party to toughen up. He was mocking what he called the fetal position mentality regarding the Democrats, and he told them to stop whining and to get their act together. And I don't know if that's effective or not, because, Democrats don't like being told that they're whining when they bitch about anything. But compare Obama, who is one of the elders, one of the leaders of the Democratic Party, and telling his people to toughen up and stop whining, to the Republican Party and President Trump's accomplishments. Think about it. The illegals are gone. Trump has literally destroyed the corporate media with his lawsuits that he is winning. He sued CBS and NBC, forcing them to pay huge indemnities for defaming him. You've got MSNBC laying people off. And you've got, late night talk show hosts unable to bring in the advertising dollars to be self-sustaining anymore. Newspapers are moving to the right. Even the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos on Washington Post, you have editors quitting because they don't like the fact they had to be in the middle and fair. Planned Parenthood is closing across the country. The Big Beautiful Bill is bringing in, big beautiful wins. Trump promised and delivered to take out the nuclear capabilities of Iran. He's pushing through the best trade deals, ending the ripoffs from the bad trade deals that we've had. All of this is what he promised. He promised that he was going to win, and that's what he is doing. He's winning. So you look at what he's accomplished and the environment that we're in, and things are getting better. They're not perfect, but they're getting better. They're heading that way. And then you look at the leaders of the Democratic Party and what they represent and what their accomplishments are. And it's just gobsmacking, the difference between the two. Let's take a few examples. Cory Booker, he had this famous moment on where he sort of a filibuster, didn't stop anything on the floor, but it was just him up talking for hours. And what does he do when he's up there? Cory Booker actually is spending most of his time denigrating other Democrats who are trying to work with Trump. Cut number 51, please, Mike.
This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now, is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump to let this pass through when we have all the leverage right now there is to say, if you're as passionate about police as we are, then pass bills out of this body that will help the police officers in Washington, that will help the police officers in Illinois, that will help the police officers in New Jersey, that will help the police officers in New York. Don't be complicit to the President of the United States, who we both know doesn't understand that language. Oh, please, don't hurt blue states.
Really? I think he was doing his best to make sure all the states are good. It's the blue states that hurt the blue states, to be honest with you. But he's denigrating members of the party who are like, all right, let's work together and see if we can fix this stuff. That's bad, according to Cory Booker. That's a bad thing. Since when is compromise? Since when is getting on board a winning policy? something that's going to actually benefit your constituents a bad thing? Well, in Cory Booker's world, it's a bad thing. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. We're talking about President Trump's successes and how the Democrat response to his winning techniques and policies has drawn the Dems into insanity to the point where they are destroying themselves. And before the break, I played for you one of the shining leaders of the Democratic Party, Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, who turned on fellow Democrats on the floor of the Senate against anybody who would consider working with the GOP and Donald Trump. I mean, that's the way to put the American people first, right? If something's working for whatever you do, don't help with it. Then we've also got another example is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He appears to be the leading citizen of, the county of denial when he gets out there, because he seems to think that the electorate, that the American people didn't vote to deport illegals. Cut 50A. 50A. 50A.
Overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for. Yeah. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to go after violent felons, but instead they're going after law-abiding immigrant families.
Yeah, no, they're not going after. Here, we discussed this before, and Tom Homan has explained this many times. If there's a violent, criminal, illegal alien, with a record hiding with a bunch of other illegal aliens who don't have records, they're all going. So because they're all there illegally, they're all breaking the law, but they're not going out and seeking, families and people with no records. But if they come across them, they're taking them. That's basically what he said. So, that's the complete, we're deliberately ignoring what the American electorate voted for there. Then we've got Nancy Pelosi, former speaker. And she went on CNN with Jake Tapper. And guess what? It looks like there might be an investigation launching about insider trading. And she's not really happy about being asked about it. Cut 53, please.
President Trump mentioned you, and he made an allegation about your investments. I want to roll that clip and then give you a chance to respond. Yeah. Seem to be having some sort of
investments.
Yeah, let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to.
Yeah, well, that's what the new law will be. They will go to jail. I think they should, in fact, stop that. But she sounded a little nervous to me. Did she sound nervous to you? So there's another one of our moral Democratic leaders. I don't want to even talk about Joe Biden's presence at the ABA gala the other night, because to be honest with you, I thought it was elder abuse. And he is no longer, I don't know anybody who thinks of Joe Biden as a leader of the Democratic Party anymore. I mean, his memoirs, when the bidding went out, came back in. He got maybe 1/10 of what past presidents are going to get, because everybody knows he can't write it. It's going to be somebody else writing it. And that brings us to probably somebody that you would think of as is really kind of the head of the Democratic Party right now, and that's the former vice president. The woman who basically lost to Trump, Kamala Harris. And when she was asked to name the leader of the Democratic Party, when she went on with Stephen Colbert, couldn't think of a name. Cut 109.
You're no longer, you're not running for office right now. Yeah. You're stepping away from that life right now. Who's leading the Democratic Party? I'm just curious.
There are lots of leaders. And
there's generally a leader of the Democratic Party. That's the leader of the Democratic Party. And who comes to mind?
I think there are a lot of, I'm not going to go through names because then I'm going to leave somebody out and then I'm going to hear about it. But let me say this.
I think it is a mistake for us who want to figure out how to get out and through this and get out of it to put it on the shoulders of any one person. It's really on all of our shoulders. It really is.
It's on all of our shoulders. That's what we call a word salad. Even that somebody who you would think is the leader of the Democratic Party, the most highly visible outside of President Obama, who's telling people to stop being in the fetal position, she would be it. And she can't name. She didn't say me. She didn't say him. She didn't say anybody, because there is no leader of the Democratic Party right now. And to me, that's a death knell for the Democratic Party. I see nobody who can pick up the mantle and run. And to me, that means that either there's going to be a new party coming out, or there's going to be a complete resurgence of the Democratic Party. It's going to reform under something else. But I think the Democratic Party, as we know it, is going to be extinct. What do you think, Robert in Maine?
You hear me okay? This phone's kind of old.
Yes, I can hear you just fine, Robert.
Thank you. Listen, first of all, let me say that the number of people that really appreciate what you and Mike and your talented screeners do on Jeff's platform is appreciated by a lot more people than you probably imagine. But thanks so much for what you do. And the other thing is, I especially like the way you present your data. It's one piece of data after another, and the nice thing about it, though, is that it's accompanied by what's called common sense. Too many research papers end by saying, well, we need more research on this topic, by the way, i.e. fund more of what we're doing. But very little common sense, which is really a real shortcoming of scientific publications. But let me get on to my main topic. Mm-hmm. We look at these Democrats. Remember, you've probably seen people that are portrayed, and you use the word psychotic, and I wouldn't disagree, but a syndrome that won't be named, but there is this syndrome out there, and it's amply demonstrated by their behavior. When somebody comes into the clinic and starts saying there are space people outside with ray guns, and I know them, I've seen them, the first thing that comes to mind is this is a psychosis, perhaps a paranoid psychosis. And I think that the syndrome we're talking about, perhaps even a little bit on both sides, one side more than the other, needs to be scientifically investigated to try to understand the cause or etiology of it. It's so striking. And then lead toward treatments and possibly prevention, because it really and truly is a very, very severe syndrome. And you just played several cuts of these people, supposedly leaders of the Democratic Party, aptly demonstrating it. I go to a meeting here that was started by somebody on the right to try to get people together talking reasonably to each other. And the last meeting we had is interesting. He asked the question of two people in the audience, in the group, I should say. It's not an audience. And he asked the question. He said, if I start presenting some evidence to you, can we sit down and talk about it rationally? And one person who's somewhat reasonable on the left said, yeah, sure, as long as it's not hurting anybody. He asked the same question to somebody that's really, really, really has a real problem with this syndrome. And his answer was very different. His answer was, I'd throw it right back in your, and he used a few bad words, face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so my point is, it's reached more than syndromic value. I think it elevates itself to the status of an illness or a disease. But in order to claim that, you have to do some studies. And I'm thinking about that from my background in medicine and epidemiology. So I'm going to send you a text because there's more to discuss, but I don't think it's appropriate on the air. But anyway, thanks for all that you guys are doing. And it really is more than a syndrome. I think it's approaching disease status.
I don't disagree with you, Robert. I'd be interested to see what you find when you do research or a study on this. So, because I don't disagree that it has, because it defies rational thought. I mean, if what you're trying to do is help people, how does this help anybody? This is Sandy Shack, sitting in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. The Democratic Party is leaderless and spinning around like, do you remember that cartoon I don't remember if it was Warner Brothers or somebody else, that the Tasmanian devil, just spinning around, just doing damage everywhere he went. That's the Democratic Party right now, denying stats, saying up is down, down is up, and eating their own, basically. Can they survive President Trump's successes? Let's go to Donald in Nashua. Donald, welcome to WRKO.
Hi, good morning, Sandy. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
First of all, great show, great conversations. Really enjoyed listening to you, your thoughts, and listeners. I just want to say, in November, the presidential election, a lot of my Democratic friends voted for Trump. Not liking him in their own, a lot of them did not like him, but they could not trust Kamala Harris to run the country.
Well, Donald, it was just like I was saying before. You don't have to run faster than the bear. You just have to run faster than the friend next to you.
True. and their accountability, right? The buzzword around Washington, these past couple of weeks with, the Russian hoax and everything. The problem is that they have lost their trust with the American people. And both parties work for the Americans, right? Both the Republicans and Democrats. America comes first, not your party.
That's the theory, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think until we get someone like a Tip O'Neill or two of the leaders got to get together and say, look, we got to start working together. This is nonsense. We're not getting anything accomplished. No matter what the Republicans, propose as a bill, gets shot down by the Democrats and vice versa. And that's not working together.
No, it's not working together. Back when 30, 40 years ago, when you still had, you had Reagan in the White House, you had, Tip O'Neill in the House, but they worked together. They worked together. And that was true right up, even through Clinton, I think. The Clinton is when it started to change, and it became more polar, and it became more a badge of honor not to work with opposing counsel or the opposing party, and to the detriment of all of us. I think, Donald. I think it's what we started to get these log jams, and it became you have like 6 months before you have to start campaigning for the midterms, and you have 6 months to get stuff done, and then it doesn't get done because the campaigning starts all over again. So I think your observation is spot on in regard to the lack of cooperation now. What do you think is going to happen to the Democratic Party, since they were refusing to cooperate basically with the Republicans at this point?
Well, my opinion is that it's not going to get any better until they are accountable for some of the things that have happened, and take a different stance, take a different outlook, that the people come first. If they promote AOC to be the next presidential campaign, if she's the top runner they have, well, congratulations, J.D. Vance, on your next presidency.
Yeah, it could be AOC, it could be Jasmine Crockett, or what about in New York? You've got Mamdani, who wants to get rid of private property, so I mean, that's I don't think that this version of the Democratic Party with these people in the front of it, I wouldn't call any of them a leader, but they're the most visible at the moment, is unsustainable. I don't see, I think it goes to the reason why the last election was heavily Republican, and that is the point that you brought up. I don't like the Republicans or the Democrats, but I like the Democrats a little bit less, so I'm going to vote Republican. I think that's what's happening, and I think that difference, that disparity, if you look at the Wall Street Journal poll and other polls, is getting wider and wider and wider, and fewer people can sign on to the Democratic Party. So thank you for the call, Donald. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Jim in Natick. Jim, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Thank you for taking my call. Mine's an overhead or housekeeping call. I've been a little bit confused. It seems like a lot of people comment about the Democratic Party, and I think it's really the Democrat Party, right? If
it
you
is.
look in the dictionary.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, and I just call everybody up because
I don't have a problem with that. Is that all you wanted to say?
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. You're absolutely correct. It is the Democrat Party. Let's see if we can squeeze in Joe from Plymouth. Joe, welcome to WRKO.
Oh, good morning, Tammy. Yeah, absolutely. There's no leaders in the Democratic Party. And constitutionally, these Democrats aren't upholding their oath they took when they took office. There should be a way not just to impeach them, but remove them one by one. Maybe we can do it in bunches.
Well, I understand why you're saying that, Joe, but you can't impeach people because you don't like their stand on something. They've got to do something basically criminal, and disagreeing is not treasonous. It's just disagreeing.